What's up, QAA listeners?
The fun games have begun.
I found a way to connect to the internet. I'm sorry, boy. Welcome, listener, to chapter 188 of the QAnon Anonymous podcast, the Secret Space Conference episode. As always, we are your hosts. Still a little bit of brain fog, I guess. As always, we are your hosts, Jake Rockatansky,
Julian Field,
Brad Abrahams,
Mathilde,
and Travis View.
A couple months ago, we covered the Secret Space Program, or SSP, a conspiracy theory with roots in 19th century theosophy, 20th century New Age thinking, and the resurgent Christian millennialism of the 1980s. Its loose and far-ranging claims include the alleged cover-up of secret technologies cribbed from extraterrestrials, multiple long-running mind control programs, deep underground military bases, time travel, and military abductions. The villains in this story are a shadowy cabal of nefarious alien races collaborating with New World Order sickos to torture children, turn them into super soldiers, and deploy them on other planets. At the core of the SSP claims lies an epic battle between good and evil, and the promise of disclosure, and perhaps even justice, for the victims of intergalactic atrocities. Unsurprisingly, the subject matter overlaps quite a bit with QAnon. The most famous Q map, for example, is stuffed full of secret space program claims, and some QAnon influencers, like the Cade Awakening, have become crossover hits. So when we found out that a 4-day secret space conference was planned in Grafton, Illinois, and that she would be in attendance alongside Lala Deaton, a singer famous for her hit song Where We Go On We Go All, I knew we had to attend. But with Travis extra busy working on Trickle Down, I figured it would fall to Jake and I to make our way to Grafton without him. There we would meet up with Brad, our Inner Earth correspondent currently working on a film project of his own with his co-director Simon. Surely, this was going to be fun.
Journey to the Secret Space Conference.
We were just a few days away from the Secret Space Conference in Grafton, Illinois, and Jake was still testing positive for the coronavirus. He sounded like shit on the phone and profusely apologized for the crime of being symptomatic. Poor guy's sinuses were all clogged up with snake venom and he was barely making any sense, so I told him he was a bad person and hung up on him mid-sentence. Clearly we wouldn't be sacrificing this bastard to the alien gods anytime soon. I found myself in the uncomfortable position of considering alternate offerings, but I had long ago stopped having friends, and anyways, who the hell would want to fly out to the middle of nowhere in the Midwest for a Q-related UFO conference spanning 4 weekdays, from Monday to Thursday? I looked over at my wife. She was at her computer working on some visuals for an inspiring local political campaign.
Attending the Secret Space Conference in Grafton sounded like a terrible, unreasonable idea. I had tons of work to do, and just the travel was gonna cost us a couple of days. But I wanted to help Julian out, and I was maybe even a little intrigued to attend a UFO conference, so I said yes. Now excited, I considered wearing a full green pantsuit to look kinda like Dana Scully. After subjecting Julian to a fashion show of different outfits, he shook his head and reminded me that we were gonna be attending a gathering of far-right extremists. I decided to pack normal clothes. Unbeknownst to me at the time, I would still end up looking like a big city brunch lib once in southern Illinois.
A brunch lib. Yeah, you can't escape it. Even when Travis and I went to the trucker convoy, and I picked out my best, like, MAGA-ish looking sweatshirt, mostly because it was red and everything. The moment I got there, I was like, I'm a big stinking lib.
Yeah.
Yeah, people couldn't help keep telling Simon and I that we really stood out in the crowd.
Mm-hmm.
Why? What were you guys doing besides having cameras?
We'll get into it. We'll get into what this guy did.
Okay.
And so, after a nightmarish 24 hours of customer support conversations, we ended up flying into St. Louis a day late and rode a taxi across the Missouri River. As we headed west along its banks, I stared out the window at bleak industrial structures, cheaply built houses, and lush greenery, all presided over by a sprawl of dark clouds. Brad had arrived in Grafton a day before us, and I texted him as we neared the rental we'd be sharing. He was at the conference already. I asked him how things were going. He responded ominously.
Still finding our footing. Weird, semi-hostile vibes.
Grafton felt like a ghost town. As we pulled up to the house, I spotted a prominent thin blue line sign on our neighbor's lawn. "Back the blue," it exclaimed in all caps. We were just a few blocks from the police station, and multiple local businesses sported similar signs in their windows. As I watched the taxi drive away, I realized that Matilda and I had made a grave mistake. We really were in the middle of nowhere, and there was no way for us to get to the conference. The Père Marquette Lodge and Conference Center was 10 minutes away by car and 2 hours away on foot. Fuck. I briefly attempted to hitch a ride the old-fashioned way by pointing my thumb down the road, but none of the passing cars and trucks stopped. When I told Brad I was trying to hitchhike my way to the conference, he laughed at me and offered to come pick me up. He and his co-director Simon had smartly rented a vehicle. Meanwhile, Mathilde had received more work while we were in the air and decided to stay behind for the night. There was only a couple of hours left of scheduled activities anyways. She would join me the next day.
Simon and I were at the conference for the first shoot of our new documentary, hoping to find someone that would make for a compelling subject in our film. But sadly for these two reptilian Jews, this was not in the stars.
I wish I could have been your third.
We'd both filmed at conferences in the past, and aside from the subject matter, we didn't expect the mood of this one to be too different, especially since we had full permission to shoot. Our approach with shooting was to feel like we are a part of the conference, which meant being right in the crowd with our cameras, instead of voyeuristically far away with a long lens. But what we miscalculated was the level of paranoia that pervaded the atmosphere, and immediately pointing cameras at people's faces wasn't the right move. So while the sentiment towards us started with a benign curiosity, it quickly grew increasingly suspicious and hostile with each hour. When I received Julian's text about his insane Herzogian effort to hitchhike to the lodge, we had just been barred from filming yet another aspect of the conference. Dejected and confused, we headed back to the Airbnb to regroup. During the drive, I felt apprehension, bordering on torment, with meeting Julian in person. Was he really as erratic and aggressive as everyone warned me? Would he discriminate against me because of my thick Canadian accent? What would he smell like? When I opened the front door, the towering Swiss man barreled towards me, grunting and raising up his arm. Sorry. The towering Swiss man barreled towards me, grunting and raising up his arms. I winced, thinking he was about to hit me, but to my bewildered belief, he embraced me in a long, intimate hug.
That's very, very apt description.
After 10 minutes, he unclasped his arms and we sized each other up. We saw we were both wearing vintage Star Trek The Next Generation t-shirts. Mine Data, his Geordi, and we realized we'd be twin flames from that moment onwards. After relating the hostility we experienced, Julian promptly changed his shirt to avoid any association with us. Mathilde wished us luck and we headed back into the vortex.
Not wanting to be associated with my two Canadian colleagues, I walked into the Père Marquette Lodge a bit ahead of them. Almost as soon as I entered the massive lobby, which was serving as a dining room and expo floor, I spotted the main organizer, Tyler. Now, if you've listened to our episode about the Q-Pilled UFO conference that Travis and Jake attended in Sedona, Arizona, you might remember Tyler Kiwala, a secret space program podcaster who at the time was dating Kate Awakening, a longtime QAnon influencer who had recently left her non-red-pilled husband. Kate was scheduled to speak here on Thursday, but I hadn't spotted her at the conference yet. Kiwala had the concerned expression of a man in the process of organizing, quite successfully, a 200-person event. I walked up to him cheerfully. "Are you Tyler?" He looked me over suspiciously.
Yeah, you're with the Canadians?
I knitted my brow, feigning confusion. Canadians? I'm Julian. We spoke by email. My friend couldn't make it, so I'm here with my wife. We flew in late, unfortunately, but yeah, we just got here. As I mumbled explanations, Tyler seemed to relax a bit, but something had caught his attention just behind me. He patted me on the shoulder.
Sorry, you got mixed up with someone else. Welcome. Just give me a second. I need to take care of these Canadians. Be right back.
No problem, I said, making a beeline for the nearby Trump merch table. I pretended to look at the t-shirts for a moment, then discreetly glanced back at the entrance. Tyler had his back turned to me and was chatting with Brad and Simon. The look on their faces told me it wasn't going well.
As soon as we walked through the doors of the lodge, which has a melancholy Great Northern Hotel vibe, Tyler seemed to materialize in front of us, blocking our way. We were no longer allowed to film anything. When asked why, he said there were a lot of empaths there, and they said we had... He said there were a lot of empaths there, and they said we had a dark energy, and were making people feel uncomfortable. This was news to us two mild-mannered, polite, and objectively light-energy Canadians. I countered that the Dutch TV crew was being just as invasive and still allowed to film, and were more mainstream media than us. He said they had promised to give him final cut over the episode, which he'll likely find out was a bluff. He then asked for one of my 3 identifications: Confused, I asked what he meant by that, and he insinuated that I wasn't who I said I was. My driver's license seemed to placate him, and he softened his stance. He didn't want to do this to us, but a couple people complained and he just wanted us out of his hair. He said we could still attend and hang out, but we couldn't film. Considering the level of dark energy and hostile vibes we were feeling, we got the fuck out of the conference.
I had become fast friends with a middle-aged Trump merch guy whose name was Max. His stand included a giant plastic cutout of Donald Trump giving 2 thumbs up, which he attempted to sell me for $70, explaining that it was weather-resistant. I thanked him for the offer, but said that the admittedly gorgeous object probably wouldn't fit in my suitcase. Soon I had picked out a nice Freedom Convoy t-shirt with a giant truck on it. I handed over $30 and draped the t-shirt over my arm ostentatiously. Now that Brad had brought down the heat, I was going to need all the help I could get to fit in. After taking my money and attempting to upsell me on a trucker convoy flag, Max solemnly handed me a piece of printer paper from a small stack on his table. It was a DIY flyer he had clearly typed up and printed at home. It recommended I watch QAnon movies like Out of Shadows, and that I follow several Q influencers like Charlie Ward. Above all, the piece of paper instructed me to get on my knees and pray to God. I grinned and looked Max in the eye. Where we go one, we go all, I told him.
WWG1, WGA,
he answered. I wandered over to a small check-in table where a young woman was sitting next to a piece of wood etched with the Secret Space Conference logo. I later found out that Tyler had etched it himself with one of those little burning pens.
Aw.
I explained to her that I had spoken with Tyler by email and he had approved a press pass for my wife and I. We were starting a YouTube channel. She signaled to Tyler, who came over to confirm my legitimacy. He had been chatting with a few conference goers about the Canadian film crew he had just asked to leave. Tyler proceeded to mimic a goblin-like Brad, pushing his camera into the side of my face.
They were disrupting the event,
he explained.
We got complaints from women. He was making them uncomfortable.
I nodded gravely.
Okay, I have to interject because I don't want people to get the wrong impression, but I had gotten too close to the back of one woman's head while trying to get an over-the-shoulder shot of her watching a speaker, and she didn't notice, but a lady behind her did, who later ran up to Simon and I and accosted us fairly aggressively about why we were there. She didn't believe that Simon could have gotten out of Canada, considering it's now a totalitarian prison state under Trudeau's martial law.
Oh my goodness.
She was like, no, you didn't get out of Canada. No.
I really didn't like the way that they were filming the back of that woman's head.
That's awful. And what about these Dutch people? Are they cool? We both looked over at what was clearly a professional TV documentary crew from the Netherlands, interviewing one of the conference speakers on a maroon leather couch. Tyler explained to me that they were fine by him. Nobody had complained about them, unlike the Canadians. He kindly granted me a free press pass for the remainder of the conference. As the young woman tied a yellow armband around my wrist, I thanked Tyler effusively. He smiled and nodded at the trucker convoy t-shirt.
It's cool, you're buying stuff. You should also get a conference t-shirt.
I did exactly that, draping it over my other arm. Tyler patted me on the back. I was in.
Yeah, see, that is the secret to these conferences that I've discovered in my short career here is that if you spend a good amount of money immediately at the booths, you're instantly the suspicion level is lowered from orange to green.
Especially if you walk into a conference where not everybody was a huge Trump kind of person, but you go straight for the Trump merch and you get a trucker convoy t-shirt.
Yeah, trucker convoy stuff, yeah.
That just yells you scattered red-pilled doofus, you're perfect, you can stay.
Yeah, because Tyler's probably like, what lib would go out of their way and put on, if a liberal were to put on a trucker convoy t-shirt, I mean, they would instantly evaporate,
Yeah, it was slowly eating through my arm like the goo in Alien. The last speaker of the day, a guy called Tony Rodriguez, who claims to have been an MKUltra super soldier, hadn't yet started speaking. A group of people were milling around on the main terrace, which overlooked a stretch of grass, and just beyond it, the Missouri River. It was quite peaceful. The group was passing around a pipe and chatting about abduction experiences. I pulled out my special vape from California and passed it around. A guy in a classic alien hoodie introduced himself and gave me a big hug. I was probably catching COVID, but I didn't care, because the combination of the vape and the edibles I had taken earlier were really kicking in. Soon I headed with the group into the conference room.
Yeah, can I just say, I was horrified when you came back and told me you had been sharing the vape around. It's one thing that we're going unmasked to this pilled event, but I think you went really overboard with this one.
It's not my fault. The Canadians set it up, so I had to basically sacrifice my
Yeah,
life.
we made him do it.
Right, yeah, just letting everyone suck on that vape.
Julian is the QAA version of like the FBI dirty man, like the guy that they send in, to do drug busts, who has to like do all the drugs with the drug dealers and stuff. But in Julian's case, they send him into these events to catch COVID.
The conference room had a couple hundred seats, and despite the ceiling being relatively high, it was filled with a jumble of weird electric candelabra emitting a dim light. It was a big room with lots of reverb, but it also felt small and suffocating. The weird smell of a heavily trodden conference room lingered in the humid air. Tyler took to the stage. He was there to introduce Tony Rodriguez, but not before thanking the AV guy and promoting one of the vendors who was clearly having trouble moving units.
One quick announcement. So there's a vendor in the front, Sacred Smoke. She made candles specific for the Secret Space Conference, and they're charged with moldavite. And when you light the candle, it's supposed to capture the energy that is here. So when you bring it home and you want to feel this energy again, you light the candle, and you can get back in that space.
Fucking hell.
My boy Tyler, oh man, I miss him. He was the guy, I don't know if the listeners remember, but at the Sedona conference, he was the one that I asked about my wife's like nightmares, and they told me that it's possible that they could have been implanted memories. He was really helpful.
Yeah.
Anyways, sweet guy.
Tony Rodriguez, who looks like a Hispanic Judd Apatow with piercing blue eyes, then launched into what would be a 2-hour-long speech, accompanied by a slideshow on the projector. He was well known to the crowd as he had appeared on multiple Gaia TV shows where he claimed to have been a part of the secret space program. His new 350-page book, Ceres Colony Cavalier, details his harrowing story at the hands of the merciless cabal behind the secret space program. Tony's basic story is that he was abducted by reptilian beings as a 10-year-old, put through an MKUltra-style training program by the CIA, sent to Peru where he was forced to traffic cocaine, and then ended up in Seattle as a sex slave for the elite satanic cabal. They then sold him off to the secret space program, who sent him to be a super soldier on Mars. Finally, Tony was traded off to the Ceres Colony Corporation, where he spent a decade on German spaceships as a repairman and engineer. All of this was part of his 20 back, which means after 20 years, he was returned to his 10-year-old body. They tried to wipe his mind, but the memories returned to him in adulthood. Instead of concisely retelling this story, Tony quickly asked the crowd how many of them had watched his interviews and read his book. Most in the audience responded affirmatively, so he just jumped straight into a jumble of details, starting with an emotional moment related to a parrot.
The other thing, I guess, that is also from the deep end is I was hoping he'd be here. I asked him to come in here, but I know it's not entirely realistic. But did you guys see the macaw earlier? The scarlet-winged macaw? And I walked around with it. So does anybody know? Is the macaw in here? He's right there.
I turned to see a large, multicolored macaw near the back of the dimly lit conference room. This was starting to feel like a dream. Tony explained the significance of the bird by showing the audience an alternate cover for his book and a tattoo on his arm. Both macaws.
Beautiful birds.
When I saw the macaw, I really, pardon my language, but it really fucked me up because of why I've chosen the symbolism, why I've tattooed it on my body.
Wait. So somebody independently of this man had just brought a macaw to the conference?
Yeah, and
Yes.
a little backstory, the guy who brought the macaw, he's been sort of traveling the country in his RV after leaving New Jersey because it's too corrupt there. He previously had he was a professional gambler, and he'd been banned from every single casino, and he was currently suing Caesar's Palace and the Golden Nugget, and he told us we could Google that, which we did, and he indeed was suing Caesar's Palace for wrongful imprisonment, which I think they just sort of had him in like the lunchroom while the police came.
Oh my God.
He also really why he left New Jersey was I think he had like an illegal weapons charge and defended himself in court by bringing up some sort of like old British law or sovereign citizen law, which actually the charges were dropped, but it wasn't because of that. It was some other technicality, but he knows it really was because he cited sovereign citizen law.
Of course.
Yeah.
I hung out with him briefly with other people in the conference room, and his macaw was shitting all over his hands and trying to chew like the string from his hoodie. It was quite a good scene.
Well, and what you guys don't realize is that if you press right in the center of the macaw's chest, it actually opens up, revealing a small alien pilot, like the scene in Men in Black, you know?
Tony explained that the presence of the parrot at the conference was profoundly meaningful.
For you guys, it's just a cool bird that says hello. For me, it's like a message from God.
Damn, I mean, you could sum this up, these entire conference up with that one line.
Yep. Tony then launched into his story, which was as long and convoluted as you might expect. He ranted about the CIA sending people to UFO conference panels to contradict them. He explained that he was tortured as a child in a special district in California, where he claimed it was legal to do so because it wasn't part of any jurisdiction. Soon Tony was talking about his time working in an underground German city on Mars. After about 35 minutes of this stuff, my eyes felt incredibly dry. I slowly worked my way out of the conference room and headed to the bar to order a Bloody Mary. Drink in hand, I walked into the now mostly empty lobby, where a middle-aged woman was sitting on one of the couches. I asked her if she had a lighter, which she didn't. I'd rolled a cigarette and had no way to smoke it. She waved to the big fireplace.
You should use that.
I leaned over the small barrier surrounding the fire and held the cigarette to the flames. On my way back into the lobby from the terrace after my smoke, another woman accosted me. She asked me if I had any memories of past lives. I told her that I had some faint ones, maybe revolutionary France. She explained that I had definitely experienced extraterrestrials. It was common to misinterpret our experience of their history as ours. I asked her if she was a speaker, and a wide grin spread on her face.
No, I'm here to gather information and report back.
I asked her to whom.
You know.
She pointed up at the sky.
We use the information to develop new programs.
I nodded sagely. On my way back into the conference room, I spotted the macaw perched on Laura Eisenhower, a secret space program whistleblower who claims to be the great-granddaughter of President Dwight D. Eisenhower. They seem to be getting along. Sitting in the conference room, I sipped my drink while Tony explained a slide featuring an artist rendition of a cool space cavern with giant statues of horses.
They abducted sculptors, famous sculptors from Europe, and had them build these. So they were abducted and had their memories erased and got put back, probably without pay. And they were being farmed out to other colonies after they were finished with these. The Ceres colony Deutsch culture was big on horses. Their belief was that the 30-year war in the 1600s, that they had defeated an extraterrestrial threat. And they said, we did it on horses. That was their motto. That was like their fighting motto. We did it with horses.
We did it with horses, indeed.
You know, that's one of the unfortunate things about time travel and memory wipe is often you will not get paid.
Abductees should unionize.
Very true. An hour in, Tony ran out of slides and started what would be an hour-long Q&A. Night had fallen over the lodge. I found myself hanging out with attendees on the terrace again. A sharply dressed older gentleman from Arkansas offered me homemade moonshine from glass jars in a cardboard box. It burned my throat and I started coughing and sputtering.
180 proof,
he said proudly.
Might want to be careful if you light a cigarette.
I needed to get the fuck out of there. Thank God for Brad, who came to pick me up soon after I texted him. He drove me to a local bar where the gang had been eating Midwest tacos. A large basket of deep-fried pickle slices were sitting on the table next to deep-fried mac and cheese bites. That night, I slept horribly. The room was damp, and the fried pickles and mac and cheese bites were boring a hole through my stomach lining. I tossed and turned, sweating profusely. By 3 a.m., a sense of dread had set in. What the fuck was I doing out here? And why had I brought Mathilde?
Why indeed?
By 5 a.m., I was testing positive.
More on that later.
After a series of nightmares, I woke to a dull sky filtering through the Venetian blinds. It was nearly midday. I felt like shit. Brad and Simon were leaving. No point hanging around if they couldn't attend the conference. They were going to head back to St. Louis and take it from there. Before they departed, we went out for a late breakfast. The idea was to grab a bite in Grafton, but the only restaurant we could find was also a bar with multiple slot machines.
Hell yes.
And the waitress told us she didn't have coffee, but did have various liquors with coffee in them and boneless chicken wings. We took the car instead and headed to the nearby town of Alton for a breakfast burrito. The day was already a disaster. I'd missed the first scheduled speaker, and now Mathilde was going to have to drive with the boys to St. Louis to rent us a car. In the meantime, I had to record an episode of Trickle Down back at the rental place. I set up my mic and equipment in the room with the most soft surfaces and curtains, good sound absorption for the recording. As soon as Travis launched into the script, the floor beneath me started vibrating. I could hear a loud hum in my headphones, too. I started wandering around the house, furiously flipping as many switches as I could find, but none of them made the infernal buzzing cease. It must have been some kind of central heating system. I was going to have to disassemble all my equipment and switch rooms. Having worked up a sweat, I opened a window for some fresh air. As I did so, it dislodged the air conditioning unit, which fell out onto the street with a loud crash. I stood there for a second in disbelief, staring at the now heavily dented unit sitting there on the asphalt. Then I walked outside and pushed it back onto the windowsill, a mysterious liquid trickling out onto my pants and shirt.
What a nightmare.
I mean, this is like something from like a 2010s like Will Ferrell movie where he like opens the window and the entire conditioning unit just like falls out and like, crushes a pedestrian beneath him and he's like, sorry.
That night, Mathilde and I ate the healthiest microwave dinner we could find at the local grocery store. I had a headache and felt nauseous. The whole thing was a failure. I had missed all of today's talks. We considered giving up on the whole thing, but then I remembered that there was a special act that night at the conference. A musical performance by Lala Deaton, a singer-songwriter who went viral with her song, Where We Go One, We Go All. We had to at least attend that. And so Mathilde and I found ourselves walking back into the conference room at around 9 p.m. Tyler was on stage noodling on a guitar. The Dutch crew were there capturing it as people milled around waiting for Lala to take the stage. And that's when I spotted him. Q influencer Patel Patriot walked past me to his seat in the front row. Now, if you're a listener of this show, you may remember Patel Patriot from our episode on devolution theory, a QAnon belief that through decentralization of power, Trump is actually still running the United States. He has since done repeat shows with Jordan Sather, but what the fuck was he doing here? Then I noticed who was sitting next to him. Kate Awakening. Wait, had she left Tyler for another Q influencer? Or were they just friends? My head was spinning, but I didn't have time to think too much about it because Lala Deaton was starting her set.
How are y'all liking it out here? Isn't it beautiful? I love it. My bed's comfy. I haven't big pottied yet, though.
Wait, 3 whole days. She hasn't pooped for 3 days.
No. She said I haven't big pottied. What are you, like 3 years old? Like, well, it'd be like, do you have to go small potty, Lala, or do you have to go big potty? And she's like, I have to go big potty.
The people at the conference had been eating 3 meals a day from a buffet served by the Lodge's restaurant. There was probably a lot of shit backed up in that room. Lala soon launched into her hit QAnon song, which she sang over a backing track and a projection of the music video. This meant that there were often 2 Lalas singing, one on the screen, and then the real Lala standing in front of it. But before she played the song, she gave the audience some background on why she created it.
So this song I'm going to do is called Where We Go One, We Go All. I wrote this during lockdown in 2020, right in the middle of the pandemic lockdown. I don't know how many of you were following along with the Q movement. So this song was, I wasn't like super active on Twitter. I was just kind of like following along and watching everyone, and I was following Q and all of that. But I released this song on all the social media platforms. Facebook, it went viral, 2.5 million views in like a matter of months. And they were totally squashing it on there. And even with that, it went viral. And it's not because of the song, it's because of the content. Like, people just were hungry. That's what got me kicked off Twitter. The day that all of us got kicked off, like it was the day after Trump got kicked off. And then my friends that thought I wrote the theme song for a terrorist organization started blocking me and unfriending me, and it was all because of this song. So, yay, here we go. It's called Where We Go One, We Go All.
Oh, Q people. It's just the same story over and over. I went viral. My family and friends don't talk to me anymore. You're my family now.
It's really interesting, though, to go to something like this that, to people like us, it's like, oh, this is explicitly, like, Q themed. But then, she'll get on stage and be like, I don't know how many of you were following the Q movement. Like, they're kind of unsure. Like, are you just alien pilled, or like, were you also into Q? Like, just vibe check. Even though her viral song, Where We Go One, We Go All, and she was selected to speak at the conference. I mean, you would assume that you're being asked to sing at this conference because it is explicitly Q themed.
I won't play the whole song, but here's Lala finishing it up. In the video, there's a collage of different people holding Where We Go One, We Go All signs, including the Kate Awakening.
Liberty cries, now is the time, the great awakening. Bang our gong, sing our song, it's up to me and you. Where we go one, we go all. United, we're gonna rise to the call. We'll fight it, love on our side. Together we'll stand till they fall. Where we go one, we go all. Day from night, dark to light, fight the fight. Day from night, dark to light, fight the fight. So dramatic. Where we go one, we go all. United, we're gonna rise to the call. We'll fight it, love on our side. Together we'll stand till they fall. Where we go one, we go. Where we go one, we go all. United, we're gonna rise to the call. We'll fight it, love on our side. Together we'll stand till they fall. Where we go one, we go all. Did y'all see Kate?
And look, she's here. Pretty impressive that she was able to keep it mostly on tune without any inner ear monitors, and probably with that microphone setup and auditorium, you couldn't hear yourself at all. Gotta say, kind of impressed.
At first, I thought the concert was pretty fun considering the situation. I'm not gonna lie, I sang along a little bit. Just, I was undercover, so I had to play the part. But then she started droning on about her dating life. And I slowly felt my soul leave my body as I realized she could keep going all night like this. So Julian and I decided to discreetly exit the room.
Kate had been drunkenly heckling her friend for the whole set. I would have to look into this Patel Patriot thing, but Mathilde and I were exhausted. We headed back to the rental place for another night of terrible sleep. The next day would surely pay off. Kate Awakening was speaking alongside Jermaine Chavis, known as a bit of a bad boy in the secret space program community. He had been promising on his Telegram channel that his talk would be, quote, highly controversial. Before I fell asleep, I received a text message from Brad.
Our St. Louis Airbnb hadn't been cleaned and had cum stains and urine on all the disheveled bed sheets and blood in the toilets.
Oh my God! Oh my
For
God!
real?
It did, yeah. Well, one of the toilets.
I thought you were joking.
No. One of the toilets had blood in it.
Oh my God.
And the stains were either urine or cum, but it was hard to tell.
Yeah, it was either somebody had been fucked and murdered, or I don't know what else.
Someone had pissed on someone who had then murdered them. Oh yeah, no, there was water sports, probably some cum shots. I mean, they call it the St. Louis special. That night, Mathilde was paranoid as hell.
Yeah, here are the notes I took the next morning on my phone. Felt unsafe last night. Kept asking Julian if the doors were locked and analyzing any weird sound in the house. Apparently, I also woke up several times half asleep during the night asking, what was that noise? And feeling in danger. Maybe psychic attacks from the Draco?
When the alarm went off on the morning of the last day of the conference, Mathilde and I failed to emerge from our torpor and ended up arriving late once again, about halfway through Jermaine's speech, after which Kate would be taken to the stage. At least I'd catch a bit of his presentation, but the bad boy energy was nowhere to be found. Instead, Jermaine was mumbling his way through an endless series of slides with tiny text on them. I'm not exaggerating when I say it was difficult to understand him at all. Multiple attendees were falling asleep in their chairs. Here he is doing starseed race theory.
Okay, these are the 5 cluster races, which is the lineage for the starseeds. Now, are trillions, brown skin, DNA strand number 2, which is also chakra number 2, and density number 2. Now, I don't know what the brown skins is, so I just said Arabic. Something called the Brenua red skin. I think that's connected to Native Americans. I mean, I got Cherokee in me. So that's strand number 3, which is third density. The Hebrew white skin, I think it is European Caucasian. Fourth strand, which is the astral realm. Melchizedek's yellow skin, I think that's the Asians. And that's DNA strand number 5, which means you get to see the probability timelines. Or you can create your own synchronicities around you to affect the timeline, to create your own synchronicities to create, which is good luck. That's what it be. And the Uniseti, which is the black skin for black people. DNA strand number 6, which is the third eye activated or your DNA already activated. Which might explain, as I'm gonna read earlier, why we don't see no black people in the Dart Fleet, because if they third eye open, they like, Yoda.
I have to say, it was refreshing to hear black supremacy narratives in these kinds of speeches, as opposed to the very cliché references to Germanic space lineages. But after dozens of slides filled with text that the audience couldn't read, and titled things like Indigo Children DNA and The Advantages Starseeds Offer Solar Warden If They Aren't Tortured or Traumatized, I started to get exhausted.
Here are the notes I took during this presentation. I think he just made a joke about indigos and eating ass, but I don't get it. None of what he's saying makes any sense. It's word salad. And later I wrote, a blonde lady across the aisle just looked furiously at Julian when he crinkled the sardine wrapper he used to transport his edibles, as if he's interrupting a coherent and fascinating speech. I took an edible. If the next presentation is anything like this one, I'm really going to need it.
Finally, after what felt like 4 hours, what was in fact just 1, Jermaine finished with a wall of text on a slide titled, The Universal Temporal War Conclusion.
And to add, the COVID-19 VATS black goo, which is the graphene oxide Metatronic code receiving antenna, which Commander Valthor warned by my great friend Elena Danan in 2020, was designed to trap you in third density. Was also another strategy of the fallen groups and AI archons to create the Stargate code access override. If they achieve this, Starseeds can no longer access the Stargate importers, and since their genes of their universal family lineage are key to the morphogenic fields and planetary grids of the Earth won't be able to send or shift the 5D terror. Flower life bivector pattern that is causing this reverse DNA 10 tree of life fallen ET code access override to allow access to the Black Sun Seraphim and the Anunnaki. So they will only be able to use these Stargate. And since they based in another universe, that means when that ascension wave come, we going to the west of that, if that's not repaired. But Laura said in her lecture that it's been repaired, so I think I wasted my time. But I'm done. Y'all can come to the Telegram group and go on this further.
I wish people had the visual.
The
of
slide.
This slide.
It is
because
so full.
I saw multiple people in the audience with their phone cameras zooming in to try to be able to read the slides.
Mm-hmm.
It's basically like a full pamphlet, just blocks and blocks of text that are too small to read.
Yep. I went outside to get some air, but started worrying that I'd missed the beginning of Kate Awakening's speech. So I headed back inside and sat cross-legged to the side of the stage with my GoPro on a stick. And who was sitting just a few feet away from me but Patel Patriot? Are you Patel Patriot? I ventured.
Yeah.
You seemed genuinely surprised. Oh, I'm a big fan of your videos, man. The stuff you do with Jordan.
Thank you.
I knew this was my chance to ask him a couple of questions. So, are you into this secret space program stuff?
Just starting to get into it through Kate.
Kate Awakening?
Yeah.
Is she your girlfriend? He stumbled over his words for a moment before sheepishly admitting that yes, the two had been seeing each other. Thus, I became a tabloid journalist for QAnon influencers.
Yeah, right.
Now, I hear that Jake, after learning this, has already picked a side. He's gotten t-shirts printed.
I'm pissed, man. I think Patel Patriot sucks. He's a flash in the pan, with his devolution. There'll be a new Trump theory, within a couple months, and devolution will be nothing more than a distant memory. But Tyler, man, at the last conference, he was chaperoning your kid. He was really good with your kid, and he was sweet. He was sweet to me about dealing with my girlfriend's nightmares. Like, what are you doing, Kate? Like, it's so funny. It's like, well, Patel Patriot, like, he's got the hot new theory. It's like, this guy's got more Instagram followers than like my old boyfriend. He's getting like better. He's not just guest starring anymore. He's got a recurring. So like, I'm gonna switch up a little bit, get myself an upgrade.
We're clearly gonna have to euthanize Jake.
I know, Jesus Christ.
Has been doing this for too long.
I heard about this and I was
Yeah.
like, oh man, really? I was like, for Patel Patriot? Oh, dude, I was like, Tyler was a solid guy. Like, they seem good together. Like, well, what's going on?
Sure.
This is my Kardashians. Like, all the time, my wife will be like, oh, well, and so-and-so was dating with with the Kardashian, but he cheated on her and stuff. I'm like, oh, interesting. But this, I'm like, oh man, I'm emotionally involved.
Please do not follow Jake in this path, anyone who listens to this.
No, but I'm glad we got to talk about it because a couple people on Twitter asked who broke up. And I was coy. I didn't say anything. I didn't want to air out anybody's public laundry. But okay. Tyler, if you somehow stumble upon this podcast, I want you to know, hashtag Team Tyler. Team Tyler all the way.
Christ, man. Jesus Christ.
What? If nobody else on this show is going to pick sides, I'll do it.
I can't believe we're over Zoom. I would have already used a cattle prod on you.
Can't.
But if Tyler was bothered by Kate's relationship, he was certainly not showing it. After introducing her, she explained that Tyler had actually been the inspiration for the topic of her speech.
Oh, that's cold. That's cold.
Maybe they're good friends.
Yeah, maybe it was an amicable thing. Maybe it was mutual. I don't know. I shouldn't assume.
Maybe he broke up with her.
Maybe he broke up with her, although I can't imagine why he would. She's pretty attractive. I don't know.
Oh my God.
You are injecting all of this extra narrative and drama into the situation that isn't inherently there.
Listen, we're all journalists, but, Jake is a type of journalist that, writes for the National Enquirer.
Yeah. What do you expect? What do you expect from me?
6.
I mean, this is, I don't pretend you don't love it.
He's yelling at Travis now.
You love it, Travis. You love it.
Hi, guys. Thank you. So Tyler was telling me that a bunch of people were coming up to him asking, questions more about the hypnosis because a lot of people have been touching on it. So I am going to go into talking about the process of hypnosis, how it works, how we uncover memories, etc. I'm going to go into a QHHT session that I had on myself that brought up SSP, an SSP experience. And then I actually, if it's cool with you guys, want to do a group hypnosis on everybody.
I was curious about the SSP or Secret Space Program experience Kate claimed to have had. For years now, she had been a QAnon influencer, even attending January 6th. Now she seemed involved in these red-pilled UFO events. She eventually explained that her experience came to her during a hypnosis session performed by her friend Allison, who practiced quantum healing hypnosis technique, or QHHT.
I just want to go into my session with the QHHT really fast, just because we're at the Secret Space Conference, and I did have these memories come through. And what it was a guy, and he was working on some space station. He was really kind of apathetic. And what I was seeing was that he was in the foster system here on Earth when he was a child, and he was taken at some point when he was a child up to do this. And so Allison was asking me questions. Allison knows that I'm very much into Q, and I'm very much into what is going on in our, on our planet right now, what's going on in the news. And so she's asking me, when are things going to happen? What does this war look like? And what's your opinion of the war? And it's good versus evil. And what are you seeing? And what's it look like up there? And what I could feel from him was he was kind of like, I don't really care. I don't really have an allegiance to Earth people. I'm not looking at it as good and bad. I'm looking at two parties that are just kind of fighting that both have claim over this planet because they've both been there for a very long time. And I wasn't really looking at it as good as evil. It's kind of like they can all kind of They can all kind of eat themselves. I don't really care. I don't have an allegiance, which is so different from me, right? This was a perspective that I needed to see. I wasn't going to get that perspective from myself because I am very justice oriented, and I am very clear that right now what we're seeing is good versus evil, and I think it is evil, and I do think there's one side that deserves to win. But that was not this guy's opinion.
Wait a minute. So she's talking about meeting like a hunky kind of like cool.
No. She's talking about basically inhabiting that, like channeling it. Basically, it's a bit of a different take than like I was an actual space soldier. I did the 20 and back. It's in my hypnosis session. I channeled this probable past life where I was a secret space program person. Kate went on to claim that there was also a mantis being present at the space station, and that she saw dimensional portals being used by a reptilian horde.
And he was working on stuff, and actually the only other person that was there with me, him, whatever, was a mantis being. And so Allison was having me go up and ask this mantis being what was going on, what were we doing, whatever. So I did, and I was like, okay, what are we doing here? And the mantis being says, waiting. And so I said that to her, and she's like, okay, we'll ask him what we're waiting for. So I did, and he's like, our orders. And it started to become very clear that this was a very logical being. This being was not going to take inferences from me. It was not going to chit-chat. It was whatever I asked, it was just going to give me that direct. So I didn't really get much, but what I found was that we were there to monitor something. And what I saw was that some portal had opened up, and there were reptilians pouring in through this portal. And we weren't there to do anything about it. We were just there to monitor it and just watch these beings just literally pouring in. And when I think of a portal myself, I have my own kind of visual representation of what I think it would look like, but this was very different. It was actually a spiral going like this. And these beings were kind of just like pouring in, and I guess it was some kind of natural portal that had opened up, and they were just taking advantage of that, and they were just coming here like that.
Kate capped all of this off by explaining what her alien past self had to say about the storm in the QAnon sense.
The other thing, which was kind of interesting, is she asked, okay, well, how are we going to know that this is happening? That, that like, we're waiting for like the big thing to happen. We're all expecting some big things to start happening on our planet. What's going to be our symbol, our sign that things are going to happen? And he said, watch Russia. As soon as things pop off in Russia. And that actually that just came to me like a couple weeks ago. I remembered that. I was like, oh my gosh. And I emailed Allison because she had sent me the tape of my thing, and the end of it got cut off. And I was like, do you remember that I said, watch Russia? And that was going to be our indicator that things were going to actually start happening. She's like, oh my gosh. So I didn't bring the recording with me, but. Oh, and then in part of it also, I was given the choice. Okay, well, you're done. You're retired. You can go back to Earth or whatever. And I had no desire to come back to Earth. I was like, I just want a garden. So they set me up with a garden, I believe, on Mars. And I had like this greenhouse on Mars.
What, were you trying to get potatoes to grow? And were you Matt Damon? Eventually, she began the group hypnosis session. She stuck to a more traditional method for it, eschewing quantum healing.
I'm going to count backwards from 10 to 0. With every number I count, you'll get more and more relaxed, and your subconscious will move to the foreground. Until at 0, your conscious mind will be in a deep sleep, and you will be in a state of hypnosis. 10, starting to go down now. 9, feeling deeper and deeper. 8, 7, 6, 5, deeper and deeper. 4, 3, deeper. 2, 1, 0, deep sleep. Each and every time I say deep sleep to you with the purpose of hypnosis and snap my fingers, you will sleep to this depth or deeper, and your subconscious mind will be tuned into my voice, and you will be physically relaxed.
At one point in the exercise, Kate explained that she was going to have us experience more challenging things, but only for a brief period of time in this safe environment. She asked that everybody visualize a chaotic, stressful scene. She then instructed us to let our anxiety rise until we felt overwhelmed. Then she told us to visualize a television. Now the stressful scene was caught in that television, and we could use the knobs on the device to turn down our fear and anxiety. We were all going to sleep really well tonight, she explained. After some minutes, Kate woke us all up from our hypnotic slumber. She told everybody that they could use these techniques to reduce stress in their everyday lives. I have to admit, after hearing about all the wacky alien stuff, the hypnosis session felt a little vanilla for my taste.
Yeah, I have to say the collective hypnosis session was pretty weak shit. She used basic tricks I've seen a million times in meditation YouTube videos, like picturing roots coming out of your feet, which I have nothing against. I was trying to relax into it. I'm normally receptive to this kind of thing. But as she instructed the crowd to breathe in and out very deeply, I kept thinking about all the COVID particles being exhaled into the room and started holding my breath, which was an obstacle to relaxation and blocked me from accessing my higher self. Like, for real, I was hearing people breathe so deeply. Like, she was like, yeah, empty your lungs completely. And I was like, holy shit, I do not want the content of those lungs floating around me.
And well, sadly, there was also this much older woman who was on a full oxygen tank and had the nose feeders in, and she was sitting around with everybody there.
Yeah, I watched a woman do a healing thing on her, which is like, yeah, there were a few mentions, including Lala briefly mentioned that they found a brain tumor in her brain, and that she told the doctors, like, I'm going to shrink it with the techniques of this guy Joe Dispenza, who's a absolute grifter, like quantum healing guy.
Mm-hmm.
And so she said that the doctors told her that's not how that works, and then she never mentioned it again. And I was like, did
it work?
Do you still have a tumor? Like, are you still quantum healing it away? I mean, it sounded terrible. And there were multiple moments like that in the conference where you realize that people were using some of these techniques or beliefs like on profound medical issues that they had. I headed out to get some air again and chatted with Mathilde about the conference. Then I checked the time. 12:53. Oh, shit. I had a private half-hour session booked with professional alien channeler Ivan Teller in just a few minutes. Brad had reserved it, but I don't think he was going to attend. As I approached the Père Marquette winery, which was just like this room in the lodge, I spotted Ivan. He was smiling awkwardly, noticing my camera. We asked him if Mathilde could also film him. He acquiesced and invited me in. I took a seat beneath a replica stained glass window representing a goose. An audible hum, presumably from the wine fridges, made the room feel slightly off. It was like being in an Irish pub in the daytime. There was something obscene about it. I sat down and we got started. After some gesticulations, Ivan had to get in contact with the aliens. We settled on Zeta Reticuli as my origin planet.
The Zeta system is 39 light years from our own and comprised of 2 yellow dwarf stars. It is thought to be the origin of the classic gray aliens, a theory popularized by the famous abduction case of Betty and Barney Hill. The UFO and its inhabitants that crashed into Roswell are from this star system, according to Area 51 whistleblower Bob Lazar. They are made up of several subspecies, including the tall whites, aka Julian, the aquatic Zuba Zetas, the Kebans and the Ebens, or Cabans and the Abens. These Zetas allegedly operate at one of the most famous dumb sites, Dulce Base in New Mexico.
Oh, yeah, Dulce. Very famous. Very famous.
I asked the Zeta Council about meeting my wife, Mathilde.
Is there a reason that I met my wife who's French? Why did I end up meeting her?
Well, she's like your twin. Twins to each other. Yeah. It's like you couldn't do this mission without her, you could say.
Mm-hmm.
So she signed up also. She's more like the part of the Palladium Council. Of course, she has Zeta connections too, but you probably see some of those features in yourselves, a little bit of it. But she's more the Palladium, you're more the Zeta energy. But you go back and forth with that. You also have some feline frequencies too.
Oh,
that we bring in through also.
But so when I was using a dating app and I swiped right on my wife's photos, was that like there's something deeper to that?
Yeah, that was meant to be. Yeah. But notice how you're using technologies to meet each other, where that doesn't always, for that to work, doesn't usually work, as you know. There's usually more false positives than positive. Mm-hmm. So that was meant to happen. Mm-hmm. It could have happened in other ways, but that was a way for it to. It just shows you how meant to be you are to get that way.
So true.
Yep. Wow. It's two little alien friends coming together, finding love.
So wait, so did aliens like rig the Tinder algorithm to ensure that this meeting took place?
That's right. Maybe even controlled our fingers when we were swiping.
Right.
Yeah, probably more likely.
In my past life, my finger was a Zeta finger. I asked Ivan to give me some tangible information, like lost memories I might not happen to remember. He started leading me through my history, including an abduction experience at age 6. When I didn't respond enthusiastically enough to that, he moved on to high school, where he correctly ascertained that I went to raves.
Around school, high school, it seems like there's some abduction energy, lost time in some form.
Yes, yeah. I had lost time, a lot when I would go to a club or listen to music, I would lose time sometimes, like I'd take a pill or whatever and...
It disappeared,
Yeah, just kind of dance and disappear and...
Yeah. So you were actually, your body was there, but you went somewhere else? So, and time also freezes a lot, where you can just... Part of it was, you left your body, it's like, I don't know if they can do this anymore. Positive beings, a lot about that, so...
Matilda, I love how you're framing like the stained glass goose just like flying over Julian's head as he...
I had to because I wanted to dedicate it to the goose cult. Love you guys.
I really like the filming style. It's very like ethereal and weird, and Ivan is kind of moving in an interesting way. Like he's, like it seems like he's holding the hands of a couple aliens that are standing next to him, telling him about the time Julian took ecstasy and ended up throwing up in a bush.
But I have to say, he kept just repeating what Julian fed him.
I was trying my best to be honest with Ivan, so I shared my real childhood experience of getting hit in the forehead with a baseball bat. To be clear, it was an accident.
When I was like 12 or 13, I was playing baseball with some friends and I got hit in the head with the bat accidentally. And I don't know, like it felt like something, changed, like there was, blood coming out and...
Yeah, you got opened up. Your chakra, your third eye, your crown chakra opened up. That was done on purpose.
Wow. It was very painful, but yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, it just had to break it open.
I was broken open. My third eye was opened by a baseball bat, which that's the kind of ascension and awakening that they don't talk enough about, where you just get a traumatic head injury and your third eye suddenly opens.
That's interesting because I hit my brother in the head with a baseball bat on purpose. And he just went crying to our mom. So it's weird. I don't
really
think his third eye opened or anything
bat?
Like, maybe because it was a wiffle ball bat. It was plastic, it wasn't a wooden, I
had that one.
I'm not a crazy person,
Yeah, I don't think that really counts as a baseball bat, man. That's like a little toy wiffle bat. It's not the same. Why did you hit him?
I think I was throwing the baseball bat like a tomahawk towards him, thinking that he would dodge out of the way or that he would catch it. I just kind of wanted to see what happened, and him just being the great sport that he is, just kind of stood there and it hit him square in the face. Sorry about that, man.
Wow. Finally, I asked Teller to explain why the fuck we started this stupid podcast in 2018.
And in 2017, 2018, I feel like some of these, the reptilian and the Draco that you were mentioning, I started reading about this in QAnon, and I was just I related to it so much. I mean, is that a connection I should keep examining?
Yeah.
Is there something there?
Yeah, just follow the vibrations you're feeling from them. Yeah, you're concealing a lot. A lot of it's connected to the government on a ground basis. You just basically feel it through your intuition. The Pleiadians have, you say, beamed you up many times when you're younger to remove implants, but of course when they did that, other beings are just, you're insectoid beings, programmed you around the side of your head. So yeah, they're just, obviously growing up wasn't easy.
So yeah, you have this podcast because an insectoid implanted something into my head.
But there's something interesting that he said there is he went, growing up isn't easy, which is, something that I think a lot of people can relate to. And as, we've seen in the past, a lot of the speakers at these conferences, talk about past trauma or, troubled childhoods, feeling like an outcast or something worse, suffering abuse or something like that. And so it's interesting to me that this Teller kind of works just that kind of emotional truth in with all of this other kind of mumbo jumbo. You have, growing up isn't easy, being a kid isn't easy. And then you also have like, but there's, it's because you have these insectoid implants on the side of your brain. And so it pairs the very real and very relatable with this, kind of esoteric sort of mumbo jumbo.
Before we left, I was forced to confront a very dark reality, that my French wife had learned too much about American culture. In an effort to fit in, she had taken their relentless positivity to its grim and logical conclusion.
Oh, come on, don't play that. That was incredible. Wow. Great energy in this room. Thank you so much. Have a great day.
Great energy in this room.
Listen,
wow.
I was really trying to fit in, and yeah.
It's good.
Just wanted to be nice.
You're doing great. It was perfect.
It's better than what I would have done. I would have been like, oh, that was so incredible. I feel like I got a reading just videotape. And I actually remember being on a galactic aircraft carrier.
Yeah, too far.
I would have gone way too far.
We regrouped in the lobby. People were lining up at the buffet to fill hard-shell tacos with what looked like oily dog shit. A few of them eyed my GoPro suspiciously. Although we had barely attended any of the speeches, Mathilde and I were very tired. We had an hour to wait before a talk by multidimensional energy intuitive seer and channeler Rebecca Rose, a white woman who claims to have been a Native American in her past life. She was at the conference to address being a survivor of the Montauk program, the secret space program, and the galactic slave trade. Her speech was going to last 2 hours, after which there would be a 2.5-hour break before the final event of the day, a whistleblower panel. What's more, a woman named Jen had posted a worrying message to the conference Telegram channel.
There is a large portal that opened today that is impacting many dynamics. People are sharing symptoms of allergies, of sinuses, of fogginess, and head surges. Did some patching and tear repairs before leaving a little bit ago with the help of the Deems device. Very hard to disconnect from this new family. This gathering/conference is a catalyst.
Sounds a lot like COVID symptoms.
No, Julian, she followed up and said that it's actually, there was too much movement in the ionosphere. That's what was causing all this.
Okay, sure.
I feel better.
Yeah, we had to move our ionospheres off the property and out of that city and hopefully eventually this country. In the lodge parking lot, we were greeted by an older gentleman wearing a yellow vest that read, FAA licensed commercial drone pilot, do not disturb. He had installed 4 little orange cones near the tailgate of his truck and was preparing to land a fancy-looking orange drone. I was instructed to stand 7 feet away from the landing zone, minimum, which I swiftly respected. The man tilted his tablet towards me and grinned. It displayed the parking lot from above in infrared. It looked straight out of The Predator. It was so cool. So I asked him about it.
I've been doing, this is infrared here.
Why is it infrared?
We're looking for, Bigfoot, right?
Yeah.
We want to see if he's out there in the woods. So he's going to produce heat, and it's going to be kind of white, light color in the recording.
How long?
We see him.
Have you found anything with it yet?
No. People.
What are people doing out in the woods?
Yelling. You hear them up over that way?
Control and the aircraft disconnected. Remote control and mobile phone disconnected.
I loved this guy. On the first day of the conference, he was wearing a t-shirt with a UFO on it that said, "My other ride."
Nice.
Cool. Well, it's cool. Such an older guy can navigate a drone so effectively. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, this guy also, he was very vocal during the speeches, and I remember him at the end of Kate's hypnosis session, like telling her, oh yeah, this was good, this was legit, because when I was in the army, I got hypnotized the same way, and that's how he got like some memories. And I think he was also the guy who was making some comments during Lala's concert.
Yes, he was horny for her,
Yeah.
Yeah, he was like, sweetheart, this kind of stuff, like, sweetheart, if you're looking this good, then I got 4 tomatoes for a chicken, if you know what I'm saying. Kind of stuff, but like very loudly. Very funny guy. He also said he was a Vietnam vet, which that seems more realistic than the other stuff.
Yeah.
But really nice guy, actually. So I asked him where he'd learned to operate drones.
How did you learn all this?
I studied, and I applied for my FAA commercial pilot's license for it, and that cost me a couple bills. And then you got to renew that every 2 years. But you learn to read maps, and you learn about weather, and you learn how high you can go when you got a specific ceiling, how low you're supposed to be below the clouds.
I was curious what had brought this sweet man to the Secret Space Conference.
So what brought you to the Secret Space Program?
I am getting memories that don't coincide with life on this earth, or life on this earth before I was born. Okay? So I might be a UFO pilot that crash landed here. And then I had to find parents who were compatible with my genetics from a different planetary system. They say it's Palladian, possibly. But so I was the second child. I don't know about my sister. She was the first one. And we always tease her about the moles that she's got on her shoulder. It looks like the Palladian constellation, yeah. And she was able to translate my baby gibberish to my mother. Like she was 3 and I was, a year and a half old. What's he saying? Change his diaper, he's full of shit. I don't know.
I think he thinks he was one of the ETs that crashed at Roswell.
Yeah.
Yeah, we left after talking to him. We had only been in Grafton for 3 days total, and it felt like 2 weeks. So we decided to ditch the conference after the channeling session, and we headed to Grafton to walk around and capture some footage. And this was the first time in several days that I was feeling some semblance of joie de vivre. The area was home to a bunch of herons, geese, and other cute birds living their peaceful lives in the wetlands by the river. A blessed life which did not involve alien abductions, police flags, COVID clusters, or fried pickles. As I spotted a group of baby geese following their mom into the water, I could feel my soul starting to heal. It was ironic that the conference attendees had paid hundreds of dollars to experience some form of collective healing, when they could have just looked outside and taken the bird pill for free.
Well, thank you so much for coming with me to this, I have to say, and replacing Jake at the last minute. You were great.
Probably a better wingman.
It was a terrible mistake for you to come.
It was
probably a terrible mistake for any of us to end up there, but hopefully this episode has...
I'm glad I could support you, because...
Thank you.
You were... Yeah, it was hell for you.
Yeah, it was. I mean, I remember calling you while you were in the middle of this one evening, and just to check on how you're doing. And how you reacted is you just started laughing a lot, and you just repeated over and over again, "It's so cursed. It's so bad. It's so cursed."
I think I said... Travis, never go to Grafton, Illinois.
Yeah, you said that as well. Mm-hmm. You blamed the town,
never.
The region.
Yeah, he looked destroyed by the end of it.
Yeah, I still don't feel good. Thank you for listening to another episode of the QAnon Anonymous podcast. You can go to patreon.com/QAnon Anonymous and subscribe for $5 a month to get a whole second episode every week, plus access to our entire archive of premium episodes.
People who subscribe to our Patreon also get access to a new series that I've been doing called Trickle Down, which is all about misinformation and bad ideas that come from high authority sources. We did the first 2 episodes were about the Kallikak story. I think it was really fascinating, sort of this eugenics sort of scientific experiment that fell apart in the decades. And then also, a couple days after this episode's released, we're going to release the 3rd and final episode on the white slavery panic, which is an early 20th century sort of basically moral panic revolving around immigration and prostitution that has a lot of parallels today and a lot of fears about, human trafficking and stuff. So I think it's really fascinating stuff, the way that humanity never learns its lessons and just does the same shit over and over again in every generation. And check that out.
Yeah, it's coming out this Friday, and it'll make 5 episodes, so a 2-parter and a 3-parter. So if you're looking for some more long-form stuff, go check it out. It's on our premium feed.
And we're still looking for leads for our documentary featuring intimate portraits of conspiracy theorists. So if you know a family member, a loved one, close friend, or even yourself that's fallen down the rabbit hole, please reach out. We're also looking for lesser-known theorists and theories. You can email us at truthfilm@protonmail.com or DM me on Instagram at BradWTF or Twitter at Love and Saucers.
Go check it out, folks, and definitely go check out Brad's movies as well, including the very good Love and Saucers. When you subscribe, you help us stay advertising-free and editorially independent, so thanks so much for that. For everything else, we have a website, QAnonAnonymous.com.
Listener, until next week, may the deep dish bless you and keep you.
It's not a conspiracy, it's fact.
And now, today's auto cue.
I know these words up here may look like this is like sci-fi and super fancy, the words ultra, but it's nothing wonderful about any of this. But ultra is a type of super soldier. We're going to go into that. MILABs stand for military abductions. That's technically what we knew this program to be called when I first started doing this. A MILAB technically would be, back in the day when I began this type of research, was a military abduction that would abduct a contactee that was being abducted by aliens, and the military would abduct them to extract information on what was going on with the aliens. But since then, we've learned that it also encompasses a whole nother aspect of this whole program where they're actually humans taking people into outer space, and there's a whole breakaway civilizations that need a lot of personnel. So if you want to learn more about the different military contractors out there and programs, I recommend you watch SSP 101. And because, as Tyler was saying earlier, I have been censored on YouTube. I was probably only a few hours away of losing my YouTube channel, and I had to purge about 3 years worth of content, anything, the word cocoa, I call it cocoa. But apparently there's still, I'm still getting strikes. I got a strike for a video that this lady from Texas, she had dreams about Jeffrey Epstein still being alive, and he was working with the Mossad. YouTube branded that video as online bullying and harassment.